G'day, everybody, and welcome to the Down at the Centre Migrating to Australia podcast. On this episode, I'm joined by Leigh Chadwick. Leigh runs the employment department and is a previous migrant now living north of Perth. And we'll hear Leigh's migration story as well as learn about the employment department, but really focus on the what it's like to be the wife of Michael, who is working in the mines in WA. So, Leigh, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. You've been an important part of the DUC structure for over 4 years. So you started working for you actually set up the employment hub and came to Australia while I was in the UK. That would have been interesting back then.
Yeah, I think it's been so nice to see how much it's grown from when we first started, and obviously this was like pre-COVID as well. So a lot has changed during the time, and obviously how many more employees we have on board now, and yeah, it's so nice to see it grow.
Yeah. So look, we will get to the employment hub and a bit about your role within the business, but I want to sort of focus on yourself, the kids, Michael, and just sort of understand your journey to Australia, where you're at now. And we're having a bit of a laugh the other day about what it's like to be the miner's wife as well. So we'll touch base on that. So just who's in the family?
So there's 5 of us. We started this in 2018, I think maybe 2018, and we looked at moving previously, but at the time we're like, oh, it's just too expensive. And then we revisited it again, went to one of the DUC seminars, and then I think we just signed up pretty quickly. We spoke to you, did that little bubble chart with us that you're notorious for.
The points calculator.
No, you made me draw the bubbles with the numbers where you're trying to, yeah, that's it. It was the points. And then you're like, circle that, then circle this. And I remember I've still got the pad with all the circles on.
Yeah, because it's interesting because when we do those shows, and I always say to people anyway, we know what you need to do to migrate, but it's important that the migrant understands the process, because if they don't, they end up calling so many times. And as soon as they understand the way it works, their points, life's easier. So if I can get you to do it or the migrant to do it, it's kind of fun as well, because you get to sort of, I don't know, get to know the person a little bit, have a bit of a laugh with them. But it worked because you're here now.
Yeah, I mean, so that was our work mobile going off there. Yeah, like I think you really do need to understand it. Like it's a complete minefield at the very beginning anyway of where to start, the skills assessments, what visas, and even like picking your state. Like I find that that's really important, and I find that can also be a big reason why people return if they haven't looked at why they want to be in that state. Or like we obviously are in WA in Perth, and we came on a recce holiday first, and Michael had to do the English test to be able to apply for permanent residency. So we came to Perth, we went to Melbourne, went to Sydney, and then we actually spoke to Jenny, and she was like, I would consider South Australia as well. So we drove from Melbourne to Adelaide and just looked at all areas. And I just think WA just seemed a bit more like us. Like in the UK, we come from Somerset, so there's just fields around, not really much going on. It takes quite a while to get to like a big city like London. So I think it felt very home from home here. Like there's not huge amounts going on here in WA, but that's why people like it.
It is referred to by many as like a large country town, coming from Melbourne, but it's definitely a beautiful place and so popular with our migrants. So Leigh, you've got so you said there's 5 years. So there's yourself, Michael, and you've got 3 kids. So we've got Zach 11, Macy 9, and Nelly 6. Nelly 6. But when they arrived, so you've been here for 4 years. So Nelly was she was young as she was 2.
Yeah, she was. Like we did explain the process to other 2, and we showed them photos, and I think that was kind of why we really wanted to make sure we did the recce holiday and include them, so that they also got to understand the process a little bit. Obviously they were a bit too young and naive to know everything that goes into it, but they were excited. It was just like one big holiday for them, you know.
You needed Tanya's book, Harry's Adventures. That would have come in handy back then.
Massively, yeah, because for kids, it's trying to explain it to them in a fun way and also keep them involved as well at the same time.
Yeah, she definitely ticked boxes creating that book.
Yeah.
Okay, so the kids, so Zach and Macy, they were at school age when you arrived.
Yes, yeah. I think went into year three. Obviously, the schooling normally is September to July in the UK, whereas here the term times are February until December.
Yep.
So they had a bit of time off school until they started, but yeah, they just hopped into school really easy.
And as a mum, were you nervous for the kids when they joined? When they
Oh,
started school.
massively. Yeah, they did a taster day, and I remember we were we were staying probably about an hour away from the school, but we knew we were obviously going to be moving. And I remember the guilt that I felt, and they weren't upset about starting. They were nervous, but they weren't upset that I was crying my eyes out, and then ended up making them cry because of my nerves.
Yeah.
And it was horrible. It was such a horrible, daunting feeling of leaving them in a school with people they have no idea where they are, who they're with. But they always prove that they're so resilient. And I
Yeah,
think
they
that's
are, aren't
one
they?
of the biggest struggles for people when they move over is they always worry about the kids and the schooling. And you grow up in the UK knowing your area, knowing the schools that you're probably going to send your kids to. Whereas when you make that move, it's such a big pressure to make sure you got it right with the schools. And we didn't get it right. We put them into a school in WA. It wasn't great. And then we ended up pulling them and then putting them into another school.
Why wasn't it great, Lee?
Um, just because they had a newly head teacher that was taking over, and just I don't know, like we just noticed a difference in their attitude. Like they were happy there, but we just weren't really entirely happy with the school, like the performance and stuff. So yeah, I think they started in the February. I think we pulled them after like 6 or 7 weeks of starting, and then COVID actually hit. So it was kind of a good timing in a way because everyone was homeschooled, and then they started obviously another school again now.
That's really cool, actually, that COVID hit at that point because it'll probably be hard putting the kids in school then taking them out. But I
Yeah.
guess it's mum's instinct, isn't it? That gut instinct to say this isn't working, this isn't right.
Yeah, 100%. And that's what I mean. It adds to that guilt of a parent of, oh, we haven't got it right first time. But I think most people I speak to, like clients as well, say the same things. It's their biggest worry of where to put them in a school. What happens if the school isn't right? But it's the same as houses. We've been here, 4 years, and we're on our fourth house now, just because we were so desperate to buy when we first moved here, and we almost we almost did a house and land package, but thankfully our mortgage person messed up, so we didn't go ahead with it. But it was in a location we thought we wanted to live in. But I think you need to be here, and this question I probably get asked quite a lot is like, should we buy straight away? And I would always say like, no. Like I hated renting for someone I didn't know, but it was good to rent for I think 2 years to really figure out like where we want to be, with your job. Sometimes when you've like first moved here, the first job you get might not be a long-term job, but it's a job to kind of get yourself set up. So yeah, it took us a little while to figure out. Like we stayed in a similar sort of area, but just moved around suburbs. And also some people will rent somewhere in a really expensive area, put their kids into school, and then think, oh, actually it's really expensive to buy. So then they have to like move further out.
Yeah, I guess the key thing is a bit of patience, isn't it? When you first arrive, you don't have to tick all the boxes. Just sort of
Yeah.
get a feel for areas. That's actually really good advice, Lee.
Yeah.
Um, okay, so you made the move. What made you? Well, you spoke before that you did a bit of a tour and you ended up in WA. But was there a certain area in WA that you really liked compared to other areas?
Do you know what? For some reason, we just picked north of the river. I don't really know why. I think someone must have mentioned like the city of Joondalup area, so we almost picked there. And Michael found an Airbnb to stay in on our recce holiday in Currambine in WA in Perth. And weirdly enough, our house that we've bought now is 2 roads over from that. And the first school that we ever viewed was actually the school that the kids go to now. So it's almost like it all kind of fell into place and was meant to be. But yeah, I think it's trying to do a bit of research. But it's hard to research on something you know nothing of.
It is. It is.
And also,
That's exactly right. Where do you get the support from?
age is really good for that, because I think that's where you can go on and say, I'm looking at moving to Perth. Anyone got any good ideas of suburbs? Or, and the same as our relocation website. That's full of all our migrants' stories of why they've picked where they live, why they want to be there, what they didn't like.
It's good. It's really hard because, like we're born all different, aren't we? We all have different choices, like everyone, and where you're from. And when I'm doing these podcasts and asking questions, I feel like sometimes in the UK, sort of where where you're born is where you stay.
Yeah, it's what you're used to, isn't it? And yeah, it is. I can understand why some people might come here and think actually it's really quiet and they want to move somewhere else. Or
Definitely different in Australia.
yeah,
Like it's very common for people to sort of move around, especially areas.
yeah,
They might be in Melbourne, but it's so big, so there's just different areas. You can be like 10 minutes away from your parents when you first move out, or you can be 3 hours away. You know what I mean? Like
yeah, yeah.
it's so good. So it's getting to understand how big Australia is, and when you make that move. But you mentioned patience before, which is really good. And how do you manage the kids' expectations? Did you have chats with them about the being patient until we get settled, or did they just naturally go with the flow?
I think we're quite laid back as people, and I think they ended up becoming quite laid back as well. And again, yeah, we just tried to involve them in everything, explain what we were doing. And when we first came here, we shipped a lot of our furniture over. So we had a period of, I think, about 5 weeks or so where we had just nothing but a tiny fridge, like just roll up mattresses. And we just tried saying to them, it will come soon, and yeah, just talking to them, I think, and keeping them in the loop really helped us.
So Michael was the main applicant as a carpenter.
Yeah.
So we did
Yeah.
a skills assessment. He did his English test. And do you remember what visa you came over on?
Yeah, we're permanent residents, so 190.
You came on the 190. Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay. So and next year you've got citizenship then.
Yes. Yeah. I think we can apply from almost now. Almost. Yeah. Now we've hit 4 years. So, which
And
will
have you
definitely.
looked into it, Lee?
Pardon?
Have you looked into it at all, being a citizen?
Yes. Yeah. I know you can watch like a YouTube video, and it tells you like a process of what to do and the test and like involved. So yeah,
Is
I hope I pass. I'm not 100% sure, but some people say it's not too hard. It's
but
kind of common.
is it something that you feel and the family like to get that Australian passport? Is that something that you feel would be like a big relief? Is it something that you'd feel like
Yeah.
that sort of sense of fulfillment getting that?
Yeah, it would be. Like, I think even when you do, I mean, obviously I didn't do the English test, Michael did that. And he was dyslexic, so he really struggled and worried about that. Um, but I think it's just once you get to even like visa lodgement stage, you have this huge feeling of like proudness. And I think it's the same kind of thick concept is once we get our citizenship, it will just be like, that's like our end goal then, get your citizenship and, you're officially living here, and you're here to stay.
Okay. So you arrive, you've got all the kids and all that to deal with, but obviously you've got to do, work and have a job. And we spoke prior to you leaving
Yeah.
with what we sort of wanted you to do from the Down Under Centre's point of view. Now, Michael, being a carpenter, arriving in WA, what was his first job? How did he go about finding that job?
So we arrived just before Christmas. So we arrived in the November. And when we first started the process, we always said we would never move until we had a job for like job security and stuff. But then I think as you start going through the process, you kind of change and adapt. So we said, actually, we'll just wait till we get here, get ourselves set up, and then we'll just ring around some companies. So that's what Michael did. He called up quite a few companies, but I think the problem was that because it was before Christmas, a lot of companies shut down very early. Like the Aussies love their Christmas break, don't they? So, they finish early and they don't come off their Christmas until end of January sometimes. So we did struggle in that aspect. So the first job that Michael had was doing like a project managing role for a cabinet making company. Again, it wasn't the best job. He enjoyed it, not so much, but it was just a job at the end of the day. At least we had money coming back in again and we kind of got ourselves set up. And then he found another job doing project managing for another company. And again, I think this is where I was saying about moving around is until you know exactly where you're going to be working, I think that's like a big indication of like where you live as well. just because you could be traveling like quite a long way otherwise. And that's what he was doing. He was traveling quite a lot for work. So then that's why we ended up moving from one rental to another, just so that we could be a bit closer. And the whole point of why you move here is for that work-life balance. So we didn't want to be spending like hours queuing in traffic just to come back home again.
Yeah. Yeah. So, okay. So he was working at the Chippy. You've been working for the Down Under Centre. Now, now things change. So let's talk a bit about you being a miner's wife. I find that very interesting, and I'm sure the listeners would as well. So lots of people come to Australia with the idea, and when we're speaking to them, lots of young working holiday people really get onto this as well, is they want to go and work in the mines. They, to them, it's a gold mine. That's what they want to do. What's it like? What's it like being married to someone who's in the mines? And maybe we should start off by sort of talking a bit about the roster. So, what are his hours?
So he works every other week. So he managed to actually get this job through a neighbour, and it was something we never considered. Like, never really thought about mining. That's not why we picked WA. It's just that we got talking to a neighbour, and he was working away as well. And the idea just kind of came into our heads, and he had an opportunity that, I think because he was doing project managing before, they were like, oh, we could see those skills and put them to good use whilst he was working away. So he first started doing a 2-in-1 roster where he worked away for 2 weeks and was back for 1 week. And it was fine to start off with, but I think after about 6 months or so, I started to notice that he just was missing more opportunities, I think, than he was home for. And sometimes when we were going out, like, we would take pictures, and I just noticed that Michael wasn't in the pictures as much. And then he switched to doing an 8 and 6. So he's away for 8 days, back for 6. So like now he flies in and out every single Tuesday. His flight going to work is about 5 o'clock in the morning, and then he gets home about 6 o'clock the following Tuesday. Like, it's another evening flight.
Okay.
And it's the perfect balance for us now, because before, when he was doing project managing, he was a lot more stressed, less money, never was around for school pickups, drop-offs, assemblies, whereas now he's home every other week. So he gets to still do the school drop-offs that he never got to do, and he's home all day, and he gets like a good week's break, a refresh, and then he goes back to work again.
And so on like pay and everything like that. So is it, so when they're not working, they're still getting paid? So it's like a salary. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's just a salary. And then you get a bonus typically like every year as well, just for doing well.
Okay. And then you mentioned the flight. So the company pays for all of that, or Michael has to look after all that?
No, so that's all included. So Michael flies with Qantas. And the good thing is they actually give you the Qantas points. Even though you're physically not paying for the flights, you get all the Qantas points. So you can either buy things from Qantas, like we used some of our points to get vacuum when we first moved here, or you can save them for your flights. So if you wanted to save all your Qantas points, you can then internally use those to buy flights to go interstate, out of state, anything like that as well.
So you never anticipated, or was never on the cards for Michael to be on the mines and everything. So you meet the neighbour, and then how does that conversation come between you and Michael? Was it your idea or his idea? How does it work?
No, I think he just generally wasn't massively happy in his role. He always used to we used to have our own building company in the UK, and it was always residential. And the company he was working for here was like commercial based. And then, I think because we were renting, we were looking at trying to buy. So it was started off as a year plan to work away. If you did 2-in-1 for a year, we would have a good deposit to put down on a house. And that's kind of all it was going to be, was like a year plan maybe. And it's funny because they always call it the golden handcuffs, because once you get in, you then don't want to leave, because of the money. And obviously it's just, you get used to being in that environment. We sat down, talked about it. And once he actually got the job, we then sat down and spoke to the kids. And I think that was probably the hardest part. It's explaining to the kids that like Dad have to fly to work and be there for 2 weeks. I was a blubbering mess when Michael first flew out to work for those first 2 weeks. I was so nervous for him, going to a mine site where he knows nothing about. It was a complete career change. And yeah, just not knowing anyone. But the kids, again, they went with the flow. They would still FaceTime, like even now, we FaceTime every single night so you can say hello to the kids. And before you know it, a week's gone by so quickly and he's back home again.
And how do you struggle with the parenting side, just, by yourself doing that as well as maintaining that connection with Michael?
Mine are obviously a bit older now, so I don't find it hard. I definitely have my moments where I'm like, I'm going to call you dad, and it's not, you don't have that backup. Or
is he the scary parent? Is he the threat?
And stuff goes wrong with the house. Last year we had a burst pipe, and I was like, what do I do? Because Michael wasn't here, and obviously Michael's a tradie, so he would fix anything in the house, whereas I was in a panic and it was nighttime, and I think that's sometimes where you miss having someone at home in the evenings, where if stuff goes wrong, I'm always like, oh, it's fine, Michael will fix it, he'll sort it out. Whereas when he's away, it's just ironic that stuff always goes wrong when Michael's not here. It's always the way.
I bet. So he leaves. What does he jump in? Does he drive to the airport? Does he get a taxi to the airport?
No, so him, there's always people around you that do the same. So he gets does like a ride share with someone down to the airport, and they pay about $100, I think. So they split it, just literally like $50 there, and then I pick him up every Tuesday evening because the kids love to watch. There's like a viewing platform at the airport here, so we always watch them land as well.
Are the planes always on time? Is it coming from a mine site?
Sometimes they're delayed, and actually there's a strike, I think, with the airlines tomorrow, but luckily he lands today, not tomorrow. Otherwise he would probably have to stay up there. But I know he says that the flying does take it out of you a bit more by doing 8 and 6, because he's on a plane every week. Sorry, he's always like flying to and from. And when he does
where's he mining from, Leigh? Like, how long's the flight?
It's an hour and a half. So he works for a company called FMG, and he works up at a Solomon site, and he just flies from like Perth Airport here. So yeah, I think it's about an hour and a half flight each way.
Yeah, it is. It's such a different life. I remember growing up in Melbourne, I called up a mining company once, and was like, all right, I saw you advertising for plumbers. And then they asked me where I was, and then I said I'm in Melbourne, and they said, okay, you got to fly to WA to get your flight back. And I was like, well, isn't that what happens? And he was like, no, mate, that's the Melbourne myth. Everyone from Melbourne thinks that mining companies are going to fly them from Melbourne Airport to the actual mine site, and it doesn't happen. So where you're living, I guess it's just a mining sort of state. Would that be fair to say? Like, it's not.
Yeah, it is, and you actually be surprised. Like, a lot of people will still live in Queensland and work in a WA site. So some of Michael's colleagues, they live in Queensland, and they'll fly in the day before. They typically will do like a 2 and 2 roster instead. So 2 weeks away, 2 weeks back at home, because obviously 8 and 6 is a bit pointless because you don't have much time. But they still find the money much better to pay for their own flight to and from, and then just stay in accommodation the night before.
Is mining an industry, or Australian mining, and what Michael knows, and if your experience is an industry that you sort of start at the bottom and work your way up? Like, could someone going into it say, hey, I just want to do 8 and 6, or will they have to start with 2 and 1, whatever you?
No, you can kind of pick your rosters depending, obviously, on what jobs are available, and again, kind of depending on your role. So Michael initially started off as part of like a blast crew, and that's when he was doing 2 and 1, but there wasn't an option to do 8 and 6 at the mine site that he was working from. And then they changed it, introduced it, because a few people were leaving, saying it just wasn't kind of family friendly enough. So they brought in the 8 and 6 roster, and now he's like a shop firer. But if you're supervising, sometimes an 8 and 6 option might not be available for you. It kind of depends on what your occupation is.
And so he gets to the mine site. So all of his like breakfast, lunch, and tea and all that's paid. Is that correct?
Yes, yeah. And I always laugh because he says, I can't wait to come home, because he says the food isn't amazing. Not that my food cooking is good, but he has the luxuries of waking up, going to go and get like a full breakfast if he wants to. He can go and get himself lunch. Obviously, they take in the mornings, they go and like take lunch in a box ready to then take to site. But yeah, like lunch, dinner, breakfast is all paid for. They don't have to wash up for a week, to have to do any chores, cleaning. it's great.
Yeah, I bet. And then what? So when he comes back, does like I guess he's spoilt for choice then because he has that more choice to choose. Does he drive you crazy? Does he just like eat?
Yeah. Do you know what? There's a shop up there that you can buy food and drinks and stuff from as well. And they also have you're allowed 3 free alcoholic drinks in the evening, but that's your limit. You're not allowed any more than that.
Sorry, say that again. Free. No, so non-alcoholic drink.
Free, yeah. So no, 3 alcoholic drinks.
Okay.
But that's your limit. You can only have so much like every evening. So you can still buy some things up there. But yeah, when Michael comes back, I always have fresh bedding on a Tuesday for him. I always have a full food shop, everything for him. But he'll come home and just demolish cookies, chocolates and stuff like that because they're the things he doesn't typically eat when he's up there because he'll just get food from the restaurants as such.
But Michael's pretty healthy guy. Like, does he go to gyms? Does he exercise up
He
there?
does. He goes to the gym every morning at like 3 a.m. and
At the mine site?
yeah, at the mine site and back here as well. And I think because you wake up so early, obviously it's 12-hour days up there, so they do leave like for camp really early. So obviously he's on a campsite as such, and then obviously they get on a bus and then they drive to like the main sites wherever they're shot firing. And yeah, I think he's up at like 3 o'clock. His alarm goes off 3 o'clock in the morning. And I think that's the only issue is when he comes back home, he is still in that routine. So quite often the norm is he wakes up at 3 o'clock here, goes to the gym, but then he smashes out like a whole pack of cookies or Oreos like the kids are. We have to hide food from Michael and he'll wake up in the middle of the night, go and eat food, get back in bed, sleep, and he won't even remember that he's eaten it.
You have to get the kids to find better hiding spots. Usually, in our house, you're going to hide it from the kids.
I actually went to Bunnings and I bought them the safe so they can like hide some stuff in there because Michael's ruthless. Like he'll just smash through like any chocolate he can find. But he's also working all day, every day because of his job and in the heat as well. Like he says he'll smash back like 10, 11 litres of water and he was like, I'll only go to the toilet like once or twice because it's really hot obviously up there. It's like high.
How hot is it?
I think at the moment it's about mid-30s, high 30s at the moment, and we're not even in summer yet. So it does get grueling up there, and he shows me videos and pictures, and he's got heaps of flies all over him, and they have all the things that cover their faces, like the nets and stuff. And I obviously love the heat here. Like a typical summer day for me, it's like low 30s. That's what I hate, like the heat I love, whereas Michael's like, it's just unbearable sometimes up there, and especially when you're next to all the huge machinery and trucks, it's then even hotter. So yeah, like it's not, I love that he can come home and he can have a complete break from work. He doesn't take homework with him or anything like that. But when he is up there, like we were having dinner not that long ago and it was a hot day anyway, and I think we've been quite busy in the day, and Michael's like, I'd only just be getting off the bus right now back into camp, and this was at like 5:30, 6 o'clock. And sometimes I think because I'm not at the mine site, I don't always see exactly what he's doing. And then I remember, actually, yeah, you are up really early. It's full on 12 hours of just walking and, you know, in that heat.
See, I feel Michael earns his cookies, by the way. I feel he should be cookied up because that's when I'm in the desert, it's hard work being in the heat.
The thing is, I want to sit down. Like I start obviously working for you for like 5 o'clock in the morning. So I like to make myself a cup of tea, go and get some McVitie's biscuits, and then I go to the cupboard and they're not there, and it makes me angry because it starts my morning off bad because I don't have a good dunk in my tea.
Yeah, there you go. So, all right. So, okay. Well, obviously there's a lot of sacrifice that comes with it. So let's just recap on the sacrifice. So obviously early mornings, you're missing him a fair bit and the kids are missing him. And like you say, they're resilient. They adjust to him. Has there been times where you just be like, geez, I wish he was here right now. I wish he was here to see the kid do this or, you know.
There's swings around us, to be honest. Like obviously there's times where he's going to miss the kids' birthdays. You can obviously book time off as well, but he has missed my birthday. He's missed our anniversary. I mean, we don't really care about Valentine's Day as such, but yeah, like there's things he misses. He's been mining for 2 years and he's been home for 2 Christmases, whereas this year is the first year that he's not actually going to be home for Christmas.
Oh, that's horrible.
Yeah, it is. But do you know what? I think we have friends here that are like family, so we'll still spend our Christmas with them, but we're also delaying Christmas Day by 2 days. So the kids will write a letter to Santa to say, can you come 2 days later because Dad works away? So we'll still celebrate our Christmas Day as a family when he comes back. So it doesn't bother me too much. And I think, and the same with like New Year, you know, he's actually home for New Year this year, whereas last year he missed it. And it does suck sometimes when you're with all your friends and then you just notice that Michael's not there, you know, but that's just part of it. If you're going to do mining and you're going to have the money, then something's got to give, and that's just one of them.
Yeah.
But
well, let's talk about the money. I mean, just give an approximate. I mean, you said it's a salary, so you know.
yeah, so this is what we were saying before, is that he was on about 80, I think, when he first moved here doing project managing at the time. Was really busy all the time, didn't get home till really late, would leave really early. And he's on roughly about 150 something, I think, a year now, and he gets every other week off. And he gets a bonus on top of that of 10 to 20 a year. So there's huge advantages of working away in the mines compared to if you're doing like a Monday to Friday 9 to 5 job.
I think you've got to be really trustworthy in the sense that you're like, he obviously respects the fact that you can look after Zach, Macy, and Nally, and the house runs okay without him. Because I reckon that'd be like one of my fears is like, oh, what happens? As you said, like the water pipe burst, my wife wouldn't have a clue what to do. She'd move next door. She wouldn't know. So you feel that. But then for him, he's like looking at it going, well, geez, we do this for a few years. Have you guys discussed it? Is it a few year plan, or do you reckon those golden cuffs will be on for a while?
Obviously, we had our own business in the UK, so there's always times where Michael's like, I really miss having my own business. And eventually he might try and do something on the side again. You could do a 2 and 2 roster, work away for 2 weeks, come back. On those 2 weeks, you could still be self-employed and potentially pick up your own work. But to be honest, it works so well for us. Like, I have enough friends that their husbands work away as well. So when Michael goes away, I binge on all the programs that he hates watching, like the Kardashians and Made in Chelsea and all the things he doesn't like watching. I binge out on, and that's like almost my time with my girlfriends as well. And then when he comes back, that's like our family time, and I don't really do as much with my friends because that's like our time. So, yeah.
Leigh, your friends, were they introduced? Does the mining camps or do the blokes, do they put things on for the partners? Or they encouraged to sort of let the wives meet, or it was just by chance you met other wives?
No, I mean, it was just pure luck that, you know, my closest friend was living right next to me when we moved into a rental, and I'd say that's how we got the job. And you meet so many people, even at school, you know, half the kids in the class, like we had a Father's Day here recently and Michael was working away, and in the kindy class or pre-primary class, they had a Father's Day morning. Half of the class were missing their dads because a lot of them were working away. So we kind of stepped in. So I think it's much more normal here for kids to know that their parents work away. Whereas in the UK, obviously Michael was home all the time. Like he was never away. So yeah, it's kind of like the norm over here to be working away.
Yeah, it's incredible. So all in all, you're quite happy with the family dynamics and the decisions of Michael working away on the mines. That's working well for you guys. And would it be do you feel if you had have arrived straight away to Australia, being a migrant? You mentioned earlier you had a small little fridge when you arrived, waiting for your shipping and all that to come. You have that anxiety, that pressure, new schools. You were quite lucky to have a great job when you arrived.
Great job.
And but would you? Would you give any what advice would you give to somebody who was thinking about getting into the mine straight away?
In all honesty, if a job like Michael's got now was put to us when we first got here, Michael wouldn't have taken it, and I wouldn't have wanted him to take it, because if you know people already here, that's great. Like, we knew of one person that we kind of briefly stayed with for a couple of weeks, and that was all we knew here. So I would have definitely felt like really lonely if that was the case, that Michael had to work away. So I think you need a good kind of support network first and then go. Like, Michael and I were very like, we were all quite an independent family. Like, we didn't always need our family to like babysit and stuff like that. So we were a good unit already. And I think you need to make sure you've got that if your partner's then going to go away, because you'll then become like homesick, or, I think there's a lot more risks if they work away straight away.
Yeah, well said. Well said. I think that's really good advice. All right, so let's go back to a bit about the Down Under Centre and your role with the Down Under Centre. So, your position within the Down Under Centre is to work in the employment division and, I guess, run that division,
Yeah.
and then be the go-to person for our employers. So, we're not a recruitment company. We don't charge recruitment fees to employers. We charge a marketing fee to advertise their jobs, and then just run through from once an employer signs up with us. So we've got 250 plus at the moment. We've got quite a few employers using us.
Yeah.
How does your day work, and what are employers looking for?
I mean, typically they approach us because they want candidates that they just can't find here, and ideally they want people that's going to be able to start ASAP. So usually, they'll come to us and I'll have a chat with them, see exactly what they're looking for, ask if they offer any relocation assistance or anything like that, kind of guide them through the process. Because equally, a lot of employers, I know, Wes, they don't really know the process. They just come to us and say, help, we really need this occupation, or we need this. And they don't really know the process of sponsorship or any of the visa process. They're just desperate for candidates. So yeah, obviously we market out all the jobs and try and, we always say it's like a dating app, but it's for work. We'll try and match the employers to, clients, any candidates that we've got. And same with the Employment Hub. Obviously they have access to the Employment Hub. They can go on, view everyone's profiles. They can come back to me and say, oh, I really like the look of this person. Can we get more information on them? So, and I think they mainly want people that are either they can sponsor, they can get someone out quickly, or they look at people that have like lodged their visas that are within a 3, 4, 5 month window of arriving, because they are just desperate, aren't they, for all these occupations? So, and all trade.
They are, and it's interesting how you say that. I guess it's managing expectations. How we explain it to them as well is there's a cost of a sponsorship, cost to immigration. I guess our fees to process the visas, and the migrants always got fees, and sometimes the employer will cover the cost of the fees and of the migrant side, and sometimes they don't. But usually, when you speak to employers, you'd think that we've got English-speaking skilled migrants arriving with their full Australian qualification. Let's say a trade, like how Michael arrived, full Australian qualification as a carpenter, full permanent residency visa. He can live and work anywhere he wants. He holds the Aussie qual. He's basically just got a funny accent, when he arrives.
Yeah.
But he can then move on, as you guys did, from job to job. And sometimes the employer-sponsored visa just gives that employer a bit of, all right, well, look, it's going to cost us. Because if they come, let's be honest, if the guy's already got a visa, it's cost the employer nothing.
Yeah.
Because there's no recruitment fees. It works well. But the migrant can move. At the same time, the migrants generally want to get settled, don't they? They want to, try and get their fee, try and get the kids settled. So, being at work.
Circumstances as well. Like some people will come to me and say, I really need a sponsorship. And I say, okay, like, well, why do you want sponsorship? And they haven't quite looked into the skill process yet, or they think that that's the only way to move here is because they need a job and they need security. And necessarily, like, that isn't always the case. Just because you've got a sponsored job doesn't mean you've not got that security, or have got it. And the same the other way around with a skilled visa. Some people are a bit worried about getting a skilled, or they want to go for a skilled and won't consider sponsorship. It just completely depends whether you've got kids, what you want to achieve, and
There's absolutely no right or wrong. It's purely about situation and what immigration are doing at the time. We've got clients waiting for states to open. We've got clients waiting for visas to be granted, and we've got employers looking to sponsor them. And do they go through the sponsorship side, put the employer through the costs, and then apply when they're onshore?
Yeah.
How does that work?
It's just a case of like connecting up some, so if you've lodged your visa recently, it's not too early to apply, because I pass on your resume to that employer and they've got your details then, and they might contact you and say, hey, like, as soon as you get your visa, hit me up and hopefully I'll have a job for you lined up. So sometimes it is just about connecting it. And I know we used to jump on the webinars every single month when we knew there was employers on, because it was maybe just like another contact for us to speak to. Or if you come here on a recce holiday, let me know, because then I can maybe introduce you to a couple of employers. You can go and meet them, get a feel for it. They can get a feel for you as well. And that's kind of like what we try and do, is just connect it, and it takes off a huge amount of pressure, obviously, if you have got a job lined up, or at least if you've got a few connections anyway.
And then just listeners out there, do make sure your Employment Hub profile is live and up to date.
Yeah.
That we know the employers value that, because it's you obviously you attach your CV and everything there, but you've got the timeline. Like your plane moves closer to Australia, it helps them understand when you're arriving, but it gives more information on what the visas that you're on. Is it a 491? Is it a 190? Is it a 189? Are you coming over on a work and holiday visa? What's your plan? As Leigh said, and I really agree with her, is you can have a plan to get here and you can have an idea of what it's going to be like, but try go with the flow as much as you can. And overcommitting at such early stages might put you under a bit more pressure, but that's just how me and Leigh feel about it. Other people probably would be like, hey, I don't want to pay rent. I've sold my house and I want to buy a house straight away because that's going to make me feel better. Absolutely fine. There's no right or wrong with it. It's interestingly chatting to so many migrants, that actually came over and bought a house straight away, and they'll say, well, that's what they wanted to do because they felt that they've already achieved straight away. And that's where they wanted to be because they've done their research, looked at the relocation website as well. It's amazing what people go through, Leigh, to get here. And then if you don't have a job when you arrive, it's a little bit harder to find property. I know Lisa from our relocation team always talks about that as well, because it's just reality. If you can have a job before you arrive, it's so beneficial to make sure that your move is going to run a lot more smooth. And you play a really good role with that. Do you enjoy that role, Leigh?
Yeah, massively, because I think I remember the stresses of Michael calling up the company saying, have you got a job? And they're like, no, we don't, sorry. And then you panic almost. And I still remember this. We were walking down to one of the beaches, and I remember Michael saying, we might have to go home. Like, if I don't get a job soon, like, we might have to go back. And I was like, no, like, that's not an option, because we got rid of everything in the UK. We packed it, and we always had that thought in our heads that we weren't coming here just for a year or 2 years to try it out. We were putting everything into this move, so yeah, like there are a lot of stresses, and it's just nice to be able to work with people to say, yep, okay, we'll match you up. And when an employer obviously offers a job to someone, it's such a great feeling, and you follow that process through as well. And that's kind of one of the reasons why I think we all, we love working for the DUCs. We all have that same passion. We've all gone through the same experiences as well, so we can really relate to everything.
Yeah,
so, we have our DUC meetups and stuff, and we have people that we did one recently, and someone had only arrived about a week ago. There's two couples that had only been here for a couple of weeks, and you can just say, don't worry, that's completely normal. That's normal to be feeling like that. Or same as being homesick. You're like, that's completely normal. That's like part of the process.
There's a meetup happening soon because Gemma and Hannah are doing a barbecue, and
on the 14th, the 14th of October. I think it's on a Saturday. We're meeting at the beach to do another big meetup.
Yeah, I'm like supplying lots of sausages. So get down there if this is out then. But the meetups are really good. They are a good way to meet up. And I guess that's a bit of the culture of what the DUC is trying to build in, and sort of say, look, we want to be able to help you from that initial consultation, which 9 times out of 10 is a free consultation to see if you're eligible. And guys, if you're not eligible and you've had a consultation with us, we don't want to tell you you're not eligible. But we're also not a business that's going to take money from people who aren't eligible. It's just not in our DNA. It's not. We're just not interested in doing that. So we want to sign you up. We want to get you to Australia. Sometimes it's hard, and at the moment, Leigh, with with the states not inviting more people and having less options, we've got to get a feel for what immigration are going to do. So the end of 2023, start of 2024, will probably upset a few people by suggesting maybe that they just wait a little bit and not rush into this move to Australia, because at the end of the day, guys, it's going to cost you tens of thousands of dollars to move on a permanent visa. If you can get offered a sponsored visa and the employer's paying for it, well, that's great. But most employers want the migrant to put some skin in the game, put something towards it, because then it's not, it's not just free. Imagine being an employer. And myself and Leigh will get this where you got one today, Leigh. I noticed in an email that, we've got a guy who's applied for a few jobs with different employers who are happy to start the visa process. We start the visa process and they jump ship, and it's like the employer comes to us, say, what's going on? And again, we don't charge recruitment fees, so it's not, financially, it's not. We don't feel under pressure that we've done something wrong, but we're like, we need to understand why that migrant wants to change so many
Yeah.
times. And it's frustrating for the employers, guys. Like, imagine being hit up, and when is the right time to ask an employer for a job? Imagine advertising a job and someone hitting you up saying, yeah, I'm going to be there in 8 months. Well, 8 months, the guy needs someone now. So
Yeah,
it's
we
hard.
have quite a lot of people that apply for jobs and are not planning to arrive till kind of 2025. And I don't even know where I'm going to be in 2025, if I'm going to be in this house or, you don't know that far ahead always. So yeah, typically, I mean, our employers are desperate for people. So they want people that's going to be here ASAP. And it definitely, like you said, it definitely pays to like look into your visa, figure out what you want, why you want that, why you want to go to that state, and everything will then just start falling into place.
There's work everywhere, I find, as well. Like, we're not, obviously we get like a few jobs in the Northern Territory, and probably not most of our, like, we did a poll on the DUC club, and we found out that Perth and Brisbane were clearly the two favourites, followed by South Australia, Victoria, then New South Wales. And Northern Territory.
In Melbourne, that's why.
The what, sorry?
Which rains in Melbourne, that's why.
Yeah, well, I was going to say yesterday was a beautiful day, but we've got a bit of cloud cover. But Northern Territory and Tasmania weren't sort of like on our clients. When we did the put the questions out there, we get a few jobs out there, but most of the jobs that we've got for our common, teachers, nurses, fitters, fabricators, electricians, plumbers, welders, chefs, cooks, IT people, they're pretty much Australia wide, aren't they, Leigh? They're not just focusing on one state. It's not a state shortage of occupations. It's an Australian shortage, isn't it?
Yeah, and also like if we obviously we work with like all employers, recruitment companies and stuff as well. So if you do go onto the employment hub and you don't find a job that's your occupation, there's like a link to a questionnaire. You can just fill out this questionnaire, you attach your resume, and it comes directly to me. So I can always send that on to different recruitment companies and see what opportunities there are for you as well. So yeah, just because
we don't promise jobs or anything like that, okay? And we let it up to the employer. So sometimes people come to myself and Leigh and say, look, I've done my employment hub and I've applied for jobs. Well, our role is to get the information from you and pass it on to reputable employers who we know are going to take, who are legitimately looking for jobs. So if it's up to them to get back to you, but it goes back saying make sure your employment hub profile is live, and that's a tool that all of our clients get for free for who are processing visas with us. Just make sure that everything's on there and as much detail as possible.
Yeah, and I can also vouch for this because obviously I see who applies and who gets shortlisted, and a lot of the people that get shortlisted are the ones that I've sent over a link. So once you've filled out your employment hub profile, I can send your profile to that employer. And I always say this is one of the best things about the employment hub is I know previously, in the UK when I was applying for jobs, you send your resume, but that's all you can do. You can't just put a face to the name or express yourself anymore. Whereas the employment hub, you can upload a video if you want to. You can upload pictures of your work, whereas you can't normally do that with a resume. And I don't think people sell themselves as much as they can in resumes as well. Like some of them, you're just stating what you do as a job. You don't sell yourself to an employer. So yeah, I definitely see the differences with people that have updated their profiles. They've got more to show, and that's what the employers tend to go for because they can see so much more.
There's so much opportunity, Leigh. Well said. Like, make your videos, guys, sit on the couch with the family and introduce yourself and why you're moving to Australia. Like being an Aussie, like we the work-life balance. I mean, we had grand final weekend for the AFL. So you're in Melbourne, you get Friday off, just because of the grand final, the Aussie rules footy. And then the other states, they get Monday off because the NRL finals on the Sunday night. Like we are allowed to have holidays, and it's not just work. It's a beautiful work-life balance. And employers respect that. You mentioned before,
they really want to know as well. Like they have, especially if they're sponsoring, they want to know why you're moving to that state because it's such a risk for them as well to sponsor someone. So they really want to know why you want to move to that state, and that's what I try and say. If any, obviously, when our clients get shortlisted for interviews, they'll sometimes say to me, what do I need to do? And I might just research your area and say, like, why you want to move to that state, and why you moving to Australia. And the employees really like that. They want to know that information.
Yeah, it's so important because it's a cost, isn't it? They're just
Yeah.
as nervous as you, the migrant.
Yeah.
And we'll get a few more employees on, throughout the podcast series for sure. So, but Leigh, thank you so much for the insight of being the miner's, the miner's wife. I find that really interesting because there is a lot of work for the mines at the moment. And just going back to qualifications were quite an important part. Am I correct in saying for Michael to be on the mines?
No, I mean, say he was a carpenter by trade, but got us over here, and he is a shot firer, so he just blows stuff up basically. And obviously, he had no experience in that. But with the carpentry, I find that you can put your hands to most things. So, and obviously, because he was project managing as well, they could use those skills. I think as long as you're saying that you're fit and healthy, that's what they mainly look at as well. As long as you're fit and healthy, that's what they want.
And it's one of those where you got to know someone to get in, and then once you're in, you're in. Isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. Like, there's obviously companies that recruit and that. So, yeah, if you know someone, it's 100% easier to get in if you can get kind of recommended. But yeah, well, so he was just lucky to get what he did, and he thoroughly loves the career change as well. Misses carpentry, but to be fair, when he comes back, I have enough carpentry jobs around the house for him to do, so he still gets to do his carpentry jobs.
Sounds like you should get him to build another cupboard.
Yeah. Oh, I just sit on Instagram and Pinterest, and I'm like, I got this idea when you come back. So yeah, sometimes he probably dreads coming back.
Yeah. Well, Leigh, thank you so much for sharing your experience in migrating and everything like that, and Michael's role. So, guys, that was Leigh. So, if you're interested in any of the employment products or anything like that, just jump on our website. And thank you again, Leigh. Anything you'd like to add?
No, like if you're looking for jobs or you need just some advice on anything, even mining advice, if you're looking at it or, want to have questions answered, then just feel free to give me a buzz, email me, and I'll get back to you. And get your Employment Hub profile set up and live.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. All right, listeners. Well, good luck with your journey down under. Thank you again for listening to the DUC Migrating to Australia podcast. Cheers, guys.
Bye.